Well, hello there. I hope you're having a good morning. It's me again, Dave, the Emperor of the Nerds, and this is the War, Sports, Politics, and Dragons podcast. It's Season 1, Episode 27, and the date is Monday, March 30th, 2026. As always, you can follow us not just on Spotify, where we began, but on Amazon, Audible, and iHeartRadio as well. Excuse me. Meanwhile, if you want to help us get better tech, you can donate through our Patreon page, which I'll mention in a minute. And you can also do it through Cash App and Venmo. Each handle there is the same, WSPD Pod. Now, we have a Patreon page, as I said, for subscribers to sponsor us. And I would rather you sponsor us than make a donation, because when you sponsor us, you're going to get some stuff back for what you're giving. For as little as $3 a month, you get to unlock premium content on the Patreon page. You can get a free subscription, but you're only going to get the freebies, and there's not a lot of them. But if you become a subscriber, you're going to be able to get access to things like my new novels as they're being released chapter by chapter. The first 7 chapters of my first completed novel, Love's Crucible, are all up there on the Patreon site right now, and the website is patreon.com/WSPDragons. You can get all kinds of special extra content, so please check it out. I would really recommend it. For just $3, you can support a writer who's been writing his whole life. Literally, since I was 18 years old, I've been working for a living doing my writing, and it would mean a lot. But enough of that. Let's get on with the show. Well, actually, before we start, it's actually disclaimer time. Now, as you regulars know, those of you that listen to the end of my podcast, you will hear me tell you my email. I'm going to tell you this now because I've got to, because of the disclaimer. My email is wspdpod@gmail.com, and my Twix handle is at the WSPD podcast. Now, just so everyone's clear, I have exactly zero affiliation with, or any connection to, or even really any interest in WSPD Radio, which is a station in Toledo, Ohio. The only reason I even know WSPD exists is because last night, on a lark, I looked it up. I said, I wonder if there's a radio station or a TV station called WSPD. Let me put it to you this way. I haven't even looked to see if there's a WSPD TV station. If there is, I'm not linked to that either. I have no affiliation with them. I'm not here to promote them, compete with them, capitalize off their name, or anything else. It's a total coincidence, and it's too late for me to change the name of the podcast. So I call it the WSP Dragons podcast, because that's really what it is. It's War, Sports, Politics, and Dragons, and it's got nothing to do with a radio station in northwestern Ohio. I've actually been around Toledo a couple times on the Ohio Turnpike, which is I-80 and 90 combined at that point. And I've spent the night in a hotel in Perrysburg, Ohio, which is a suburb, basically, of Cleveland. And that was in 1995 on my way to my first ever Gen Con convention in Milwaukee, which is the big convention for Dungeons & Dragons people. It's in Indianapolis now. It's been in Indianapolis for over 20 years. But it's moved around a few times. The first Gen Con was actually in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, and the play on words that Gary Gygax made when he started the convention was it was the Geneva Convention, as in kind of an homage to the meetings that were held in Geneva, Switzerland, to discuss the rules of civilized warfare. Because it was a convention for amateur war gamers. A lot of them were miniatures gamers, and the rest were board game war gamers. But anyway, I'm not attempting to capitalize on their name, to piggyback to make money, or any such nonsense. It's totally, as I said, a coincidence. To be honest, like I said, I didn't know they existed until early this morning when in the middle of the night I couldn't sleep. I was playing a game online and decided to fart around on Google and started looking up random stuff, and that was one of the things I looked up. So that's the only way I even know they exist. But, whatever. We're just going to move on now. We're going to start with war, and we're actually going to start with mankind's war on illness, because I've got a story here I want to read you, and I think you're going to like this. This is about a man who may have saved multiple millions of lives. Let me find it real quick. Let's see. I know his name is James Harrison. All right. Here it is. Okay. In 1951, A 14-year-old boy in Australia nearly died during surgery. Thanks to massive blood transfusions, he survived. This is reported, by the way, by Dr. Lemma on Twix, and I looked it up, and this story's true. Basically, donated blood from strangers saved his life. And he made a promise that the moment he turned 18, which was the legal age at which you could do it, he would start donating blood. He kept that promise, and he really kept that promise. He started donating in 1954, right after he turned 18. He had a late birthday, I guess. After the first few donations, doctors discovered something unusual in his blood, which was a rare antibody that could be used to prevent a fatal condition in unborn babies. Before this discovery, thousands of babies every year in Australia were dying, and doctors couldn't figure out why. Women were having miscarriage after miscarriage, and babies were being born with brain damage, but the antibody in this man's blood changed everything. It was used to create a medication given to pregnant women whose blood was at risk of attacking their unborn child. Now, again, his name was James Harrison, but he was also known as the man with the golden arm. This man donated blood every 2 weeks for over 60 years. He never missed a single appointment. He expected nothing in return. Of course, in Australia, blood donors are not paid. I was going to say compensated, but they're not paid. The thing about it is, he was actually terrified of needles the entire time. He once said, "I've never once watched the needle go into my arm. I look at the ceiling, I look at the nurses." His own daughter needed the injection during her pregnancy. His grandchildren might not have existed without his donations. Quote, "He has left behind a family that may not have existed without his precious donations," his daughter said. On the 11th of May, 2018, at age 81, James Harrison made his 1,173rd and final donation. Australian law does not allow anyone past the age of 81 to donate blood. So he had to stop. It wasn't even voluntary that he stopped. Think about that. But more than 3 million doses of medication made from his blood have been given to Australian mothers since 1967. He is credited, get this, with saving the lives of 2.4 million babies. Mr. Harrison died peacefully in his sleep February 17th of last year. He was 88 years old. Scientists have since grown his antibody in a laboratory, hoping it will one day protect mothers and babies around the world. That's a cool story. And that's all we're going to talk about in the War Department, pardon the pun, for now. We're going to get into things on Friday about that. We're going to move on to sports and talk about the Orioles real quick because, hey, I'm an Orioles fan. I bleed orange and black. Always have. Sunday, the Orioles won 8-6 at home against Minnesota. So they had lost the previous day. I believe it was 4-1. So that combined with their opening day win gave them a victory in the series against the Minnesota Twins. They took 2 out of 3. So the Orioles are 2-1 right now. They're second place in the American League East behind Toronto and the Yankees. They're both 3-0 right now. So they've started off hot. Now, the thing is, in the National League West, there are 3 teams that are 0-3. San Francisco, I think Arizona, and the Colorado Rockies are all 0-3. So the only team that has a winning record, actually, the San Diego Padres are 1-2. The only team with a winning record in the National League West right now is the Dodgers, and they're 3-0. They've started off well. But if you look at their lineup and their payroll, you'll understand. So anyway, the Orioles won 8-6 Sunday over the Twins. They were down 4-0 before they rallied with 3 runs and then 2 more in a later inning to take the lead, and eventually hung on to a 2-run lead to win. As I said, during the game, notably, there were 10 challenges to pitch calls by the home plate umpire on the ABS, or automatic ball and strike system. 7 of the 10 challenges resulted in overturned calls that the umpire made. The footnote to the game is that the manager of the Minnesota Twins, I guess he was arguing with a robot. I don't know. But in any event, Derek Shelton, the manager of the Twins, got ejected in the ninth inning when a borderline call was challenged by the Orioles, and the call turned out to be a strike, according to the ABS, and the strike resulted in a strikeout, and with a runner on first, cost the Twins a very important out in the ninth inning when they were down to their last three. Well, he threw a fit, went out on the field, was fussing at the umpires, and got tossed. So he is the first ejection due to an ABS call in Major League history. People are calling it a rage bait ejection, but whatever. So, yay Orioles, they're 2-1. I forget who they play next. I think they're at home for 3 more games, and then they go on the road. But we're going to move on. We're going to go to politics, but I don't know where to put this story. Because where would you put a story about NASA between war, sports, politics, and dragons? Maybe dragons from the fire breathed out by the booster rockets. I don't know. But we're going with politics because NASA is a government agency, and there's always politics involved when it comes to government agencies. But I'm going to go with a report here from, let's pick eeny, meeny, miny, New York Times. I don't know. We'll go with the story here from the New York Times, and it says that the journey to the moon is, quote, starting to feel real, unquote, for NASA's Artemis II crew. There are 4 astronauts involved, 3 men, 1 woman. One of the 3 men is a Canadian. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't read that article because it's paywalled. Well, I guess we won't be reading that one. But in any event, on Wednesday, April Fool's Day, 4 astronauts are going to be launched in an Artemis II to circle the moon. It will be the first time that Americans have gone to the moon, not necessarily landing on it, but gone to the moon since, oh God, what was it? I want to say 1972. Of course, July 20th, 1969 was the day that Neil Armstrong first stepped foot on the moon. That was the first man that did it. But after Apollo, I want to say 16 or 17, I think it was Apollo 17 was our last mission to the moon, and that was in 1972. So it's been 54 years. So congratulations, America is back. And here's where I'm going to get quasi-political by saying this. I don't think this is a Trump thing. I don't think this is a Biden thing. I'm not entirely certain of the timeline of this. And to be honest, going back to the moon is something that's been kicked around for at least 10 years. It just happens to be taking place now. But it's wonderful that we're going back, because this is the kind of stuff that got me interested in science and in science fiction when I was a kid. You know, this and reading Robert Heinlein and Isaac Asimov and Philip K. Dick and all the other people who wrote stuff, this always fascinates me. So it's a wonderful thing to see that we're going to be sending astronauts to circle the moon. And, of course, there's some speculation we're going to try to get people to go to Mars down the road, which would be wonderful as well. You know, a lot of sci-fi series that are set in the future. You know, we've got colonies on Mars. We've got colonies on this or that moon of Jupiter and so on and so forth, you know. But I'm looking forward to it. I'm hoping that it will be broadcast somewhere where I can watch it without having to pay, because I try not to pay for TV. We pay for internet here, and I have streaming TV. So, you know, we're paying $90-some a month for internet, I think it is. And I don't really want to plunk down any more money just to watch regular old TV. So I'm pretty sure NASA has a YouTube channel, and maybe they'll air the launch. But in any event, apologies if I sound a little bit rambling this morning. I mean, I always ramble, we know this. But I have now been up for, just hit 24 straight hours. So the pills aren't working. I'm still not having a lot of luck sleeping, so apologies for sounding weird. As a matter of fact, this is the 3rd time I've tried taping this podcast, and I'm right now deleting a segment that I had in the first one. The second one only lasted 15 seconds because I had a terrible time trying to say the intro. But the first one, I was rambling about the Overton window and propaganda, and I honestly sounded like I was on drugs. So that got deleted. So we're going to have a slightly shorter podcast today, but I'm going to read you a couple more quick stories and entertain you. The next story might fall under joke time, actually. This is from the U.S. Marine Corps. All right, as reported by Mike Netter Mike, Netter Mike, on Twix. A former sergeant major in the Marine Corps took a new job as a high school teacher. Just before the school year started, he injured his back. He was required to wear a plaster cast around the upper part of his body. Fortunately, the cast fit under his shirt and was not noticeable. On the first day of class, he found himself assigned to the toughest students in the school. The students, having already heard the new teacher was a former Marine, were leery of him, and he knew they would be testing his discipline in the classroom. Well, Sergeant Major walked confidently into the new classroom, and the new teacher opened the window wide and sat down at his desk. Well, as he sat down, a strong breeze kicked up and blew through the window and made his tie flap up. Well, the Sergeant Major teacher picked up a stapler and stapled the tie to his chest because he knew he had a cast on underneath it, but the kids didn't. There was total silence in the room. Not a peep for 10 seconds. And then the teacher went about doing his thing, the former sergeant major, and the rest of the year went by very smoothly, suffice it to say. That's a great story. I like that. I really do. Real quick, delving back into war, 2 quick notes. First, after Iranian projectiles have landed on places in the United Arab Emirates, the UAE, who had said, don't do that, has decided to act in response to what Iran has done, and the UAE has seized $530 billion in Iranian assets. The IRGC is effing around, and they're continuing to find out. To date, Iran has attacked 17 countries. Here's the list: Israel, the United States, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait, Jordan, Iraq, Bahrain, Oman, Syria, Cyprus, Azerbaijan, Turkey, France, Italy, the UK, Iraq, and Lebanon. Okay, now they have not attacked Jordan. They have not attacked Syria. They have not attacked Yemen. You know why? They have even attacked Lebanon. But you know why they haven't attacked some of those places? Is because some of those places are where they have their proxies and they don't want to hit their own dudes. Think about that. So anyway, we'll get into the Third Gulf War later on. And remember, if anybody else starts using the term the Third Gulf War, you heard that here first from me. I'm the one coined that phrase. Shame that we're having a war, and as I said in the previous podcast, I don't want it, but to be honest, the problem with not wanting a war is in order for there to be peace, all parties involved have to want peace. The IRGC does not want peace, baby. So, they're not going to get it. Moving along now. Anecdotal evidence is real quick. It's about something that's related to my disclaimer. So let me get this out of the way. While I was looking up WSPD, I got thinking about the call letters and remembered that one of the local TV stations, its call letters actually represented words. They weren't just randomly assigned letters. Now, let me give you a little bit of history on broadcasting and how call letters originally worked. The very first radio station was in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and it was randomly assigned 4 letters to identify it, and those letters were KDKA. KDKA in Pittsburgh, I think they're at 100.1 FM and 1020 AM. They're still in operation after over 100 years. All right, but interesting rule here that you may or may not be aware of. Except for KDKA and maybe a couple other stations, This is a 99% of the time rule. The overwhelming majority of radio stations that are located east of the Mississippi River have call letters that begin with a W. 99% of the radio stations that are west of the Mississippi have call letters that begin with a K. One notable exception, as I just said, being KDKA in Pittsburgh, which in theory should be WDKA or should be located west of the Mississippi. But as I said, okay, so looking up WSPD, I was wondering what WSPD stood for. If it's in Toledo, is that the initials of the guy who founded the station? You know, what would it be? Okay, for instance, here in the Eastern Shore of Maryland, WBOC is a TV station. It's Channel 16. And WBOC stands for We're Between the Ocean and the Chesapeake Bay. WMDT, Channel 47 out of Baltimore, is MDT standing for Maryland Delaware Television, because WMDT's range of coverage includes the Eastern Shore of Maryland and much of Delaware, basically from Dover, Delaware, south to the line at Delmar, and then the Eastern Shore of Maryland. So I was looking up what WSPD stood for, and it was for Speedy Oil. I don't know if I'm doing this right here. Let me look it up again. Speedene, Speedene. Speedene was a brand of gasoline and petroleum products sold by the Fort Industry Oil Company, which was founded in 1927 in Toledo, Ohio. The company purchased a local radio station, WTAL, and renamed it WSPD in 1928 with the call letters derived from the Speedene brand. So that's where that set of call letters got their name. And I was just thinking, well, KTLA, which is a TV station in Los Angeles, that's got to mean Television Los Angeles. It's got to. It's so obvious, it's just got to be the case. Well, I looked it up, and it is. KTLA, the TLA stands for Television Los Angeles. So when you see the call letters for a radio station or TV station, there's a very good chance that they actually mean something. That it's not just like an airport code where they try to assign letters that seem close to the name of the city. In this case, it could stand for an oil company. It could stand for a phrase. It could stand for a region of coverage. It could stand for all kinds of stuff. And I think little things like that are interesting. That to me, yeah, I guess I'm turning into Cliff Clavin because that sounds like bar trivia. But it's fascinating to me. Little stuff like that makes the world more interesting. Imagine if they were just all randomly assigned. There was no rhyme or reason to it, and you had no story to tell. Makes things seem kind of bland. So I'm kind of glad that that's the case. But I think we're going to have a short podcast today. Like I said, we didn't do a lot of sleeping, so I didn't do a lot of researching. And I'm going to wrap things up right now, and I thank you for your time. We're going to get into things a little bit more in detail Wednesday during my special members-only live session on Patreon. So if you want to sign up for that, you're more than welcome. Again, it's patreon.com/WSP Dragons. And again, no affiliation with the radio station in Cleveland, Ohio. Just want to make that clear yet again. Nobody's called me out on it or anything. I just happened upon this little tidbit, and I just want to make people understand that no, I don't. I'm certainly not getting any money from them. And certainly not trying to get any money from them. You know, it's not like I decided, hey, this is the Warner Brothers podcast. Hey, this is the Disney podcast. No, that's not what we're doing here. It's just a coinky-dink, but whatever. Anyway, this is Sleep Deprived Dave. We're going to sign off real quick. But again, follow us on Twitter. We're at the WSPD podcast. And patreon.com/WSP Dragons. Subscribe there. Follow us on Twitter. Lots of stuff going on. The Twitter algorithm's actually been really interesting the last day or two because a flood of Japanese tweets translated into English showing how much the Japanese love American society and culture have been coming through on my feed. So it's been wild interacting with people from Japan about, how they love country music and hot dogs and the movie Top Gun and so on and so forth. It's really cool to see that they have an appreciation for our culture. It's a shame that we don't have as much understanding of and appreciation of their culture because it's rich and vibrant. It's fascinating if you start reading about the history of Japan and the way they do things. Here's a final story, and then we're going to wrap things up. Okay, after World War II, Douglas MacArthur was put in charge, the general was put in charge of the American forces, Allied forces that were occupying Japan. He held that job for 6 years as administrator, basically. He was kind of sort of the American semi-emperor of Japan because he had a lot of influence on the policy decisions and things that happened in Japan. Well, the Japanese people, in an attempt to be hospitable to the sudden influx of hundreds of thousands of American troops and some of their families on Japanese soil, tried to kind of Americanize their way of doing things and their way of advertising businesses, say, and things like that. Well, the example I'm looking at is a story. This may or may not be true, but either way, it's kind of wild. In an attempt to be friendly toward potential American customers, 1 year during the early years of the American occupation of Japan, it was reported that one department store around Christmas time put up a crucified plastic Santa Claus. Santa on the cross, because they were trying to understand Christian culture and Santa Claus and Christmas, and they got their wires crossed a little bit, so they put Santa up on the cross. Now, I don't know if that's true, but it's a hilarious story. And it shows you that they were trying really hard, if that was the case. And they try really hard now. And quite honestly, we've got a better ally in Japan than I think we do in Britain. And as someone said, there are Japanese people who've never left Japan that seem to be more pro-America than American leftists. Think about that. But anyway, that's going to wrap us up. I hope you had a good time. We're actually coming in, under a half an hour? Wow. I finally figured out how to shut up. Maybe I should stay up for 24 hours every time I do a podcast, right? But anyway, everybody, have a great day. We will talk to you technically next month because April is coming in just over 36 hours. And maybe, actually, I'm sure that the big topic on Wednesday is going to be the Artemis 2 launch. So come by on Patreon and check it out. I'm going to have a lot to talk about. And again, hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks for listening. Please follow, subscribe, spread the word. Take care of yourself, and I'll be talking to you.